have everyone standing at this time.
To those who are joining us here today on the stage, to faculty, staff, students, and honorary guests, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Today we gather to participate in this special convocation, a Black History celebration of trailblazers, where we will pay tribute to a true civil rights icon, Dr. William Barber, and to extend our accolades to the Freedom 14 of Lincoln University. Your presence here today is an acknowledgement of the significance of this event, and we're so grateful that you have joined us. Welcome. We're going to begin the program with an invocation from Reverend Curtis Morris, who is an adjunct instructor here at Lincoln and a guest pastor from the Office of the Chaplain in Religious Life, followed by the anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Please remain standing.
Let us bow. Eternal God, our Father, we thank you for this celebration. We come, God, to celebrate those who are able to have the courage to step out. So, God, we celebrate the Freedom 14. God, we celebrate Dr. William Barber. We celebrate Dr. Brenda Allen. We celebrate Malcolm. We celebrate Huey. We celebrate Mandela. We celebrate Bishop Tutu. We celebrate those who have the nerve to step out. And so, God, as we celebrate these great men and women of God who has impacted so many lives, we come to ask you to be with us today. Allow your presence to fill this place. God, allow what we stand for, allow us to do that. God, let our orthodoxy be with our orthopraxy, God, as we learn, liberate, and lead. We thank you, God, for the spirit of those who have the courage to be leaders. Bless this time now. We thank you for your presence. Amen.
Thank you to the choir director and her accompanists, as well as the choir. That was beautiful. We will now have perspectives on the occasion brought to us by our Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary, Office of the General Counsel, Attorney Venus D. Boston.
Good afternoon. On behalf of President Brenda A. Allen, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Gerald Bruce, and Lincoln University Board of Trustees and Cabinet members, we welcome our honoree, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II, Desiree Chang of the Philadelphia Human Relations Commission, who is our partner in this convocation, esteemed platform guests, any special guests, our Freedom 14, and our distinguished faculty, staff, students, and members of our community to this momentous occasion, a special convocation and Black History celebration of Trailblazers. Today, we commemorate Black excellence by honoring a national civil rights leader and repairer of our nation's breach. We also pay homage to our future trailblazers who continue to lead the cause against social injustice. As we celebrate Black History Month, we recognize the importance of amplifying our voices in the Black community. This month serves as a reminder of the ongoing struggle for equality, justice, and empowerment, as well as celebrates the triumphs which shape our society. This convocation holds special significance as we honor our very own trailblazers forever known as the Freedom 14. And we bestow an honorary degree in honor of the repairers of the breach upon Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II. Through his unwavering commitment to lifting up the marginalized and the oppressed, he has inspired countless individuals, such as our very own Freedom 14, to ignite change across this nation. Today, as we revere Black History Month, let us recommit ourselves to the ongoing struggle for justice and equality. Together, let us uphold the rich legacy that defines our institution's tradition. Thank you for joining us as we honor our history, our future, and chart the course towards a more brighter and equitable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Boston. Our choir director is Dr. Victoria Petrie, and the accompanist is Miss Tony Caldwell Hall. They will lead us in our next number, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around.
To freedom land. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Let injustice turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, torching up to freedom land. Turn me round. No, no, ain't gonna let oppression turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let no hatred. I'm gonna keep on talking, marching on, marching on. Ain't gonna let nobody. You're not gonna turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody. I'm gonna keep on talking, keep on marching. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody. I'm gonna keep on talking, marching on, marching on.
Let's give them another hand. And thank goodness for our trailblazers and the appropriateness of the song, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around. Now we're going to bring to the stage Dr. Carmen Lassine, who is a Lincoln alum and also an assistant professor in the Department of Education at our School of Adult and Continuing Education graduate programs. She will grace us with the stage and give us a freedom and background story of the Freedom 14 and their story. Dr. Lassine.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. Good afternoon. I stand before you as a daughter of this institution with a lineage behind me and in front of me, rooted in the Lincoln legacy. My charge today is to share with you an issue that is not new and a student response that was. In June, the state of Pennsylvania's governing body voted to supply Lincoln University and the 3 other state-related institutions with designated funds. The release of those funds were held up for months. Despite inquiries from Dr. Allen and alumni efforts like the one I led, the Honey Campaign, there was no movement. The delay of funds began to impact the university's operations. It was not until the awareness raised by the Lincoln March movement from November 10th through November 19th that the funds were released. Students organized behind Drake Smith's vision to do something big. 4 leaders of the march emerged: Drake, Mackenzie, Jason, Isaiah. The group decided to walk from Lincoln University to the Capitol in Harrisburg to raise awareness of the issue. On the rainy Friday morning, the Lincoln University March commenced with a mini march from the arch along University Avenue. Participants included students who could not make the entire walk, local government officials, university staff, and alumni. Over the next 3 days, the group of 14 participants walked the route that had been strategically mapped out and driven the day before by the students and Dean DeBinion. On Sunday afternoon, they were met by a cheering crowd of alumni and supporters before marching over the bridge that leads directly to the Capitol. Let me back up to Friday. Along the mini march, I was able to meet Adam, a freshman, a decathlete from Maryland. We had a conversation as we walked along the route. It was very nice to meet Adam. Early the next morning, this is Monday, the 14 participants and I went to the Capitol building to meet with legislators to express why the release of the funds were critical to Lincoln. It is here where I watched the brilliance that is Mackenzie, who organized the groups, and I also saw the fast action of Drake, who found a quick way to get the letter printed so that as the groups walked to office, they were able to put a document in the hands of the legislators. The Saturday before, I did receive a phone call from an unknown number. Feeling like a mother whose children were out late, I answered the call. It was Isaiah who was making a wellness call. This is something that they embedded along the way to make sure that the adults who were supporting them along the way knew that they were okay. Once they got to Harrisburg and had the opportunity to go into the Senate chambers, Senator Carolyn Comita called each participant's name from the Senate floor. The House of Representatives, led by Representative Joanna McClinton, welcomed the group with open arms onto the House floor to celebrate their actions. On Monday afternoon, the Freedom 14 was joined by 2 vans full of students, along with Dr. Brenda Allen and a host of other staff members and administrators. While we were on the steps outside, we were able to sing happy birthday to Jeslan, who took the march, and it commenced on her birthday. At the press conference organized by the students, Senator Vincent Hughes made it a point to note that not one student from Temple University, University of Pittsburgh, or Penn State took up the issue, let alone marched 66 miles to garner the much-needed attention to the matter. The smallest school made the biggest sacrifice to get the least amount of money allocated to each of the 4 schools. Within days of the Lincoln March, the required bills were signed and the money was set to be released to all 4 state-related institutions of higher ed. This is the reason why we are honoring the Freedom 14 today. At this point, I'd like to part of honoring the Freedom 14, I don't know if they remember, one of them jokingly mentioned, what if we had like a monument to us? That was not their intent, I just want to be clear. We don't have a monument, but we do have a plaque. It reads, Lincoln University Learn, Liberate, and Lead honors the Freedom 14 Trailblazers March for Full Funding, Harrisburg, PA, November 10th through the 13th, 2013. As I read your name and your designation at the time of the march, I ask that you stand. Please know that this plaque will be hung in Dr. Allen's office, and at a later date, each of you will get your own plaque for your own care. Drake Smith, Jr. I'm going to ask that you hold your applause to the end just so we can get through all of the names. London Banks, Jr. Until the end, thank you. Kyrie Black, Jr. Jason Davis, Sr. Tajane Gray, Sr. Adam Green, Freshman. Kalia Green, Senior. Isaiah Johnson, Junior. Jalen Marshall, freshman. Prince Nkanu, freshman. Ezenwa Onu, senior. Jazlan Sane, junior. And before I call this last name, I have to say we were often corrected that it was not 14 students. It was 13 students and 1 staff member. Zachariah Stevens, class of 21. Congratulations, Freedom 14. It's not on here. Last but not least, I cannot forget Mackenzie Hanks.
Thank you, Dr. Lassine. Modern day trailblazers. Let's give them a hand again. It's safe to say that you stand on the shoulders of those before you. Attorney Venus Boston will now come and give the introduction to Reverend William Barber.
Good afternoon again. Lincoln University has a remarkable legacy which boasts a roster of influential leaders who have a lasting impact on history. From pioneering scholars to civil rights activists, their contributions continue to shape our world today. Reverend Dr. William J. Barber was born into a legacy of activism and faith. Much like our great history of alumni who served as heads of states, presidents of African countries, a justice on the Supreme Court of the United States, and the list continues, Reverend Barber embraces Lincoln's motto, learn, liberate, and lead. As the president and senior lecturer of Repairers of the Breach and co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, Reverend Barber's life and work exemplifies the essence of Lincoln pride and what it means to champion social transformation. As a son of the South, Reverend Barber originates from my hometown, Plymouth, North Carolina. And as evident in LU's very own Lincoln lawyer, that's me, little old Plymouth, North Carolina produces individuals of exceptional quality. Reverend Barber galvanized communities nationwide to rise and demand change through his stirring sermons, fervent speeches, and fearless activism. His notable career is a testament to the values of Lincoln University, which includes striving for equality for all. Let us draw inspiration from this trailblazer, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II. Let us heed to his call of action and rededicate ourselves to the unfinished work of building a beloved community where we are all truly free and equal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with immense pride that I present to you my cousin, a man I'm honored to consider my mentor and family. But beyond that, I introduce to you a nationally acclaimed civil rights leader who is unafraid to spearhead the quest for justice. Let us give a warm LU welcome to Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II.
Thank you, Cub. Wow. Hello, Lincoln. Proud, powerful, marvelous history of this university. I want to thank God for being able to be here today. Some years ago, they told me I'd never walk again, And I told the doctors when they said that, well, go check with that other doctor, because I don't think that's his final say. I do come here today favoring my knee a little bit as we are, but some things have happened, Venus, in history and in medicine. God works in mysterious ways, that they now have a procedure, and I'm considering it in December, which might be the first time I've been without pain in 42 years. But I want to say to you, even when you are in pain, it is not an excuse to sit down and do nothing. God calls us, and Jeremiah had mental struggles and cried all the time. Moses could stutter. Paul had a thorn in the flesh. Franklin Roosevelt had polio. Dr. King was stabbed by a white woman in the late 50s and hardly could breathe sometime when he delivered the speech on the March on Washington. We all have something. But would you look at somebody and say, my something is not my disability, it just means I'm differently abled. Let's tell somebody I'm differently able. I want to thank this president for her courageous leadership, the chair of the board, the members of the faculty, any parents that are here, and all of the students that are here today. Would you just give yourselves a great round of applause and thank God for your presence in this place. And if I was in church, I'd tell you to look at a neighbor and say, if you want to see evidence of a miracle, just keep looking at me. I am thankful to my cousin, who is a great woman in her own right. She did not tell you she's the daughter of a bishop, PK, and my former pastor, and where my grandfather is also a pastor at that same church. And yes, she mentioned Plymouth, but actually, her and I come from Free Union, one of the few free black communities in America, free black folk in the Deep South. They were free. Mulattoes, black, and Native Americans who fought for their freedom and remained free even during the vestiges of slavery. So Venus, thank you so much for being so kind to introduce. Now, I think you all need to give these students a bigger applause, because I heard they got about $18 million. Was that something like that? Now, now I think that deserves a standing ovation. That's somebody wouldn't be going to school without that $18 million. Somebody wouldn't have a dorm room. Somebody wouldn't have a faculty job. You hear what I'm saying? And they told me, they said, Reverend Barber, we didn't ask permission. And I said, freedom fighters never do. Because if you spend too much time, you'll get stuck in the analysis of paralysis of analysis. Cautious and careful folk never make history. There are times you have to follow your heart. You have to, like Rosa Parks, just say, this is the last time I'm going to the back of the bus. I'm sitting down right here so I can stand up right here. We are live streaming today to over 500,000 people. And I want to ask those that are out there to go to this, to send some money to giving, giving.lincoln, lincoln.edu. All of those of you by live stream, send some money. And if you can, now if all you can do is send George Washington, then that's fine. But you know, George Washington always goes to church and everywhere else, but hardly does Ben Franklin go to church. That's the $100 bill. We want, and so we want Ben Franklin to go to church and go to college. So giving, G-I-V-I-N-G, at lincoln.edu. You all got that? And then I want to say to these students, any of you all have any bills you still got to pay for? Any books and, I mean, they didn't give you that $18 million, did they? Not directly. Did they give you 10% of it? No. Well, when they talked to me about coming, I heard your story. And it reminded me when I was a young student government president, and we had to fight for the same thing back in the 80s. In fact, I was going to say to the president of the Board of Trustees that we used to have something called Black College Day, where all of the colleges came together every year and went to the state capitol to fight for funding. It wasn't a once, when it was a crisis. I want to encourage you all to restart Black College Day. Now, back then, the college presidents gave us that day off. And we didn't go somewhere and party. We all got on the school buses and went to the state capitol. We need Black College Day in Pennsylvania every year. And who better to lead it than Lincoln? Lincoln and Cheney getting together annually, Black College Day. Students going, lobbying, speaking out, having a massive rally on the state capitol ground, calling the alumni and everybody else to say that our interests are not just for one time in the midst of a crisis, but our interests are every day. HBCU, Black College Day, I want to put that in the atmosphere. And then, lastly, before I say what I have to say, they told me about these students, and they said they were going to give me an honorarium. I said, I can't take that honorarium. I said, be something wrong about that. I said, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give that honorarium to these students, and then we're going to add to it. And I had thought about giving it and then adding enough for each of you to get $2,000 apiece. But sitting there, I got convicted, so I'm going to do it to give each of you $3,000 apiece. $3,000 apiece. Now, I ain't quite figured it out, but God going to make a way. God's going to make a way. God's going to make a way. And I want to encourage you. And we're going to give this so it goes to you. Right, not so you can use it for what you need to use it for, right? Yeah, because what's 3 times 13? Huh? 49, is that 49? That 3 times 13? 9, 39. All right, y'all get me right. 30, that's the right. 30, so 49 is the price. That's right, 49, 7 times 7, 13. All right. Well, we're going to get it to you. How about that? All right. We have to know history, face history, and make history. There's a psalm in the Bible that speaks to this, Psalm 118. The stone that the builders rejected have become the chief cornerstone, and it is marvelous in our eyes. This is the history, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Somebody say, we have to know history. We have to face history. We have to make history. Now, I know we all got on these cute robes, but this is convocation, and you all did invite a Southern preacher. Now, after a while, I'm going to rap back and say, ain't gonna let nobody. That's how you say it. Turn me. Turn me. Ain't gonna let nobody. I'm gonna keep on marching up. I hear those basses back there in that choir. God knows but that song is about making history. Whenever people have had to survive suffering and injustice in the world, there are these resistance songs, songs that have been passed down from generation to generation. We almost learn them by osmosis. They're not written anywhere. You just pick them up. If you're in the business of knowing history and facing history and making history, you find yourself caught up in the rhythm of the movement. Every movement has a rhythm. Every movement has a song. There's an old spiritual that came down to us in this nation. It says, some say this world of trouble is the only world we'll ever see. But I'm waiting for that morning when the new world is revealed to me. That was a song. It wasn't just about heaven over yonder. It was about what we call realized eschatology, when that which ought to be comes into existence. And a new world is revealed to me. Just a few years ago, Kendrick Lamar offered a contemporary expression of the same sentiment when he sang, "Though the dark clouds, even through the dark clouds, even through the storm and the rain, we will shout, because we know that after the night, we're going to be all right." It's about songs about making history. Psalm 118 is a resistance song. People were under pressure in ancient Israel, ancient Palestine, yes. What Genesis chapter 1 calls the land of Hivalia, because you know the Middle East is really ancient Africa. And this Psalm 118 was a cry for hope. The stone that the builder rejected have now become the chief cornerstone. And this is the history, this is the day that the Lord has made. It says that if you hang in there comes the day when the rejected change history. There are days that come when valleys of dry bones rise up and become living people of hope. The days that come when dark Fridays are turned to bright Sunday morning. If you hang in there, God is at work in history through you. And there comes a time that God actually reconstructs society and reconstructs who reconstructs society. And he does it through you. This is the day. This is the day. 2024, I don't know if you all have thought about it, is the anniversary of Freedom Summer. Maybe that's what was pulling at you all, these 13 students. The spirit of those who 60 years ago, this year, decided to go to Miami University in Ohio and prepare to go south. A lot of people told them it was too risky. Some of them may be in this room right now, those with gray hair that went up there and went down south. They went to south to fight for voting rights, though most of them even knew even if they won the voting rights, they were not going to be able to vote because 18-year-olds didn't get the right to vote until the 1970s. But they went. They went all the way down south. They walked. They learned nonviolent civil disobedience. They knew at times that they might not make it back. And so at Miami University, they learned to sing another resistance song. This might be my last time. This might be my last time. I don't know. But if anybody talks about me, tell them the last time you saw me, I was fighting for freedom. Because this might be my last time. And at 20 years old and 18 years old, these babies were singing about the possibility of life ending because they were in a system so racist that in 1963, 17 days after the March on Washington, 4 girls were blown up in Sunday school while they were studying the lesson, love your enemies. And yet at their eulogy, Dr. King said, these girls teach us something. They teach us that there comes a time that you must substitute courage for caution. He said, it's not so much who killed them, but what killed them. Every politician that feeds their constituents is the stale bread of racism killed them. Every preacher that hides behind the stained glass windows of a church and refuses to get involved in the cause of justice killed them. Every Negro that sits back and will not challenge Jim Crow killed them. Every person that puts up with the Southern Democrats and the hypocritical Northern Republicans killed them. And these girls, in their death, call us to live. 60 years ago was Freedom Summer, when young people recognized it was time to go to Mississippi, go to Alabama, and build a movement. And you know, in every era, we need a movement. In every era, we need rejected stones to build a movement. Might I pause here a moment and ask anybody in here, do any of you know what it's like to be rejected? rejected because of your income, rejected because of the color of your skin, rejected because of your disability, rejected because of who you love or who you like, rejected because of the way you think, rejected. But God says he specializes in using the rejected stones. Oh my God. Every era needs rejected people to stand up and produce a revival in the nation. Do you know our history? Because we need to know our history. Here we are today, 405 years since the first ship landed in Virginia to bring slaves, black gold, cargo. Race is not the father of racism. Racism is the father of race. A decision was made, how can we take this country economically and run it past countries that have been in existence for thousands of years before us? Oh, I know what we'll do. Let's find the people. And because of their color, we can easily identify them. And let's make their race the criteria for their slavery. Let's make their race the criteria for their oppression. And so the laws were changed to make so that if you were black, you were automatically a candidate for perpetual slavery, you and your descendants. And how was that put together 405 years ago? It was put together in a system of what I call first bad biology, that skin color determined brain size. And if you had black skin, you weren't as smart as other folk. And then the second part of it was sick sociology, that some people have to be up here and some people have to be down here. Then the third was political pathology. All of the political policies have to keep in place slavery, no matter what. Even if you write a constitution and claim that the first premise of that constitution is to establish justice, the pathology of the politics of racism requires that you then make some people 3/5 of a person. But not only was it bad biology, sick sociology, and political pathology, it was evil economics, the kind of economics that says the end justifies the means. If the goal at the end is to make money, it doesn't matter how you make money. If you make money by stealing a black woman's baby and selling them into the deep south, make it that way. If making money means you work people from can't see to can't see, then make it that way, because all that matters is the money. But the last piece of what caused this racism and slavery to exist was heretical ontology. And heretical ontology is the notion God meant it to be this way. God endorsed it. And you can go to the great stacks and libraries of Harvard and Yale, even in the Ivy League, and find all kind of books that were written by people who claimed to be the great erudite scholars of their years, justifying slavery and declaring that God made it so. Here we are. Here we are 250 years ago. Crispus Attucks was the first African American, in fact, the first American to die in the Revolutionary War. Do you know that? Here we are. 248 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Here we are 237 years since the Constitution was drafted. Here we are 237 years since we were fractionized in that Constitution and called 3/5 of a person. Here we are 195 years since Mexico outlawed slavery and 189 years since Texas revolted. You do know that's what all that stuff at the border is really about. Because they are Americans too, South America, North America. They are Americans too, but what is it about? We keep saying that people from Mexico are coming into our country. No, we stole their country. Texas was Mexico. Arizona was Mexico. New Mexico was Mexico. California was Mexico. They're not coming to our country. They're coming home. They're coming home because racists in Texas who also didn't tell the slaves they were free for over 2 years. That's why I dare any of y'all to be celebrating June 19th. They weren't celebrating. They were cussing. You mean to tell me y'all got 2 more years of work out of us? Texas split from Mexico because Mexico outlawed slavery in 1848. And it's been a battle ever since. Here we are. Here we are, 170 years since this university started out as Ashman Institute. And some of the great founders of this university, who were good people, Quakers and Presbyterian, but they wanted to send black folk back to Liberia. They wanted to have a special place, and they thought they were doing the right thing. And isn't it amazing that Lincoln College, that became Lincoln after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, a college where the founders originally designed it to be a place to send black folk back to Africa, came to be a place that created so many people who fought for us to stay right here in America. Thurgood Marshall, Langston Hughes, Christian Fleetwood, Tolson, who trained the great debaters. You remember that movie? And then all the siblings of the people here. Julian Bond, a sibling of a Lincoln graduate. Paul Robeson, Pauli Murray. And then all these colleges that came out of folk from Lincoln, South Carolina State, Livingstone College, Albany State. Do you know your history? Allen University, Texas Southern, a school that was brought into existence to push the philosophy that we needed to be sent back to Africa, ends up producing people who say we ain't going nowhere. Here we are, 175 years since Harriet Tubman escaped slavery, 172 years since Frederick Douglass delivered his 4th of July speech, where he declared that the 4th of July was nothing but bombast and hypocrisy and fraud, until the sons and daughters of Africa, of slaves, were treated right. Here we are, 161 years since the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, 159 years since the end of the Civil War, 156 years since the signing of the 14th Amendment that declared equal protection under the law for all persons, not all people, not all citizens, but all persons. The 14th Amendment that just might save us from an orange-haired want-to-be dictator. The 14th Amendment that says you cannot participate in insurrection and then run for the presidency of these United States. Here we are, 154 years since the ratification of the 15th Amendment that says no one can deny or abridge your right to vote. Here we are, 124 years since the riots in Wilmington, North Carolina, to stop black political and white fusion politics. 116 years since the riots in Springfield, Illinois. 115 years since the Niagara Movement became the NAACP. 89 years since the New Deal was put in place. 86 years since the Labor Standards Act was established and a federal minimum wage of 25 cents an hour was put into place. Here we are. 80 years since Smith versus Allwright opened up primaries for black people. Here we are. 70 years since Brown versus Board of Education overturned the Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896. Here we are, 69 years since the brutal murder of Emmett Till on August 28, 1955, as a response to the Brown decision in 1954. Here we are, 64 years since the sit-ins at A&T in Greensboro by A&T and Bennett students. Here we are, 61 years since the murder of Medgar Evers, the very night that Kennedy delivered his speech calling for a Civil Rights Act of 64. Here we are, 61 years since the March on Washington for Jobs and Justice, where Dr. King did not deliver the I Have a Dream speech. That was not the title of the speech. The title was Normalcy Never Again. The I Have a Dream was the hoop. You know anything about black preaching? He was actually told not to use I Have a Dream that day. He had done it in Detroit. His handler said, you don't need to preach that day. But Mahalia Jackson, who was standing right in the front of the podium, after he finished his prepared march, she said, Martin, tell him about the dream. But the organizer was a gay man named Bayard Rustin, who took young folk like the Freedom 14, Freedom 13, and organized that march in 8 weeks. In 8 weeks. Here we are, 61 years since the bombing of 4 girls in Birmingham. Here we are 60 years since Fannie Lou Hamer said, there comes a time you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Here we are 60 years since the signing of the Civil Rights Act, 59 years since the signing of the Voting Rights Act. Here we are 59 years since Bloody Sunday. Here we are 59 years since Malcolm X was killed. Here we are 56 years since students at South Carolina State were massacred. Here we are 56 years after the assassination of Dr. King, because he dared to stand up and say that love requires that you challenge racism, militarism, and poverty. And when he stood up to say that, black folk left him, not just white folk. 150 newspapers left him when he delivered that speech in New York in 1967. Every black civil rights organization wrote resolutions against him, told him to stick with civil rights and stop talking about war and poverty, economics. And he was killed exactly 1 year to the date that he dared to deliver that sermon. Here we are, 53 years since my parents fought to integrate public schools in Eastern North Carolina. Here we are, 15 years since Obama, whose name Barack means praise the Lord, was sworn into the presidency of the United States. And here we are, barely a year after these 13 students said, give us our money. Here we are. We must know our history. Not only must we know our history, we must face history. Do you know where we are right now? Here we are in America, and in the last presidential election, we had over 140 million poor and low-wealth people in this country. Hear me now. 140 million poor and low-wealth people in this country. 60.9% of black people are poor and or low wealth. That's 26 million people. 30% of white people are poor and or low wealth. That tuba sounds good down there. I hear y'all. That 30% of white people are poor and low wealth. That's 66 million people. There are 40 million more poor and low wealth white people than there are black people, and yet whenever poverty is talked about, it's only talked about in terms of black and brown. Poverty is the 4th leading cause of death in this country right now. Did you know that? Higher than homicide, higher than gun violence, higher than diabetes, higher than obesity. And yet we had 15 presidential debates, and not 30 minutes was dedicated to, if you become president of this country, how are you going to address poverty and low wages? We got to face this history. Here we are right now in this moment. 87 million people in this country are either uninsured or underinsured. How many of y'all know somebody underinsured or uninsured? The 25 wealthiest countries in this world, America is the only one of them that doesn't offer some form of universal health care. Even after COVID, 350,000 people died during COVID, not from COVID, but from the lack of health care. We call people essential workers, told them they had to go to work. Before COVID, we called them service workers. During COVID, we said you're essential. We honked horns, we rang bells, we gave them all kinds of accolades, but then treated them like they were expendable. You are essential, but we're not going to pay you a living wage. You're essential, but we're not going to give you health care and paid family leave. Here we are. Right now, today in America, take 2 adults with 2 children need to earn $25 an hour to live. The minimum wage is $7.25. It's been that way for 15 years. Workers haven't had a raise since 2009, but work has gone up and stuff has gone up, but wages haven't gone up. And restaurant workers make $2.13 by law. By law. Some restaurant workers, because of what they make by law, couldn't even qualify for COVID relief because they didn't make enough base money. And they say the reason we don't need a minimum wage higher is because students don't need it, and that's mostly who work in low-wage jobs. They say y'all don't need it. In fact, they say that if you make $13,000 a year, you're not poor. The government measurement for poverty says if you make $13,000 a year, you live in the lower middle class. The lower middle class. And yet, during COVID, billionaires made $2.2 trillion. 748 billionaires during COVID got richer, while millions of people got poorer. And even the things we did do, like child tax credit, this is our history, and expending Medicaid coverage. 6 months in, we canceled all those things. So poverty went from 140 million down to 112 million, and now it's back up to 135 million. Before March, 18 million people are going to lose their Medicaid that they had during COVID. 105 million people do not have paid family leave or medical family leave. How many of you all know parents, they're scared to get sick? Can't take off work. 1 in 5 families can't afford to pay one energy bill. There are 5 million people that get up every morning and can buy unleaded gas and can't buy unleaded water. This is our history right now. The federal government spent $1.1 trillion on war and weapons and law enforcement and mass incarceration. If we took just 10% of our military budget and put it toward things that could work, everybody could get health care, everybody could get a free college education, everybody could get a free public education. Just 10%. If we cut our military budget in half, we would still have more money in our military budget than China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, and Iraq combined. This is our history. Our history now is that we are in the kind of moral moment that you have to condemn Hamas and Netanyahu, both of them. You have to condemn Hamas for indiscriminate violence against children and women. I don't care what you're fighting for. The moment you kill innocent people, you have gone from liberty to something else. And then we have to criticize Netanyahu, not the Jewish people, because it's not all of them, but Netanyahu and that government for the indiscriminate violence that's happening to children in Gaza and Palestine. And we must call for a ceasefire. And when there's a ceasefire, clergy, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, we need to get on the plane together and go over there and visit the children of Gaza and the children of Israel and the people who have lost children on both sides. This is the history we're in. And it's a hard history. But my young brothers and sisters, you are what God's been looking for. Because not only must you know your history, and not only must you face history, you must make history. Did you know right now there's not a state in this country where poor and low wealth people don't make up 30% of the electorate? In some battleground states, 40%. Did you know that where the election was only 3%, that if you just mobilized 20% of poor and low wealth voters, they could change every election in those states? Did you know right here in Pennsylvania, right here in Pennsylvania, this is Pennsylvania, isn't it? Right here in Pennsylvania, in 2020, there were 3.3 million eligible poor and low wealth voters. The margin of victory in 2016 wasn't but 40,000 votes. The number of poor and low wealth voters that didn't vote was 1.2 million. The stones that the builders rejected, God has now given us the numbers and the power to turn things around. But we've got to make history. We've got to decide that there comes a time you have to stop crying over what's happening and change it. A time like that came in 1852, and I'm through. Brother Frederick Douglass, who was an abolition, had escaped to freedom. And then a Supreme Court was stacked. Somebody put a Supreme Court in place to turn things back. It was called the Taney Court. You see what's happening in the Supreme Court today. Well, this was the Taney Court, all you future lawyers. And the Taney Court went to work. And they voted on a piece of law called the Dred Scott decision. How many of y'all know about that decision? And the Dred Scott decision said that a black man has no rights that a white man ever has to pay attention to or respect. When that law was passed, Frederick Douglass went into depression. People said, it's over. There's nothing we can do. And then I think it was Sojourner Truth, one of the sisters in the movement, saw Frederick Douglass somewhere with his head in his hands. And she saw him over there. And she hollered at him, Frederick, is God dead? And Frederick said it shook his soul. He got up from that place. He told the American Abolition Society, I want to speak on what has happened. In 1852, he went to that society and he said, I have something to tell you all. He said, in one view, it looks like the slaveholders have a decided advantage. Seems like they have all the organization, they have all the money, they have the governments, they have the judiciary, they have everything. And it looks like there's nothing we can do. But so it was with David versus Goliath. Because oppression organized as ours is always appears to be invincible until the very hour that it falls. He said the Supreme Court of these United States is not the only power in the world. Listen to Frederick. He said the Supreme Court of these United States is great, but the Supreme Court of the Almighty God is greater. Justice Taney can do many things, but Justice Taney cannot perform impossibilities. Justice Taney cannot change the essential things, nature of things. Justice Taney cannot make evil good and good evil. Such a decision cannot stand. God will be true, though every man be a liar. And we can appeal from this hell-black judgment of the Supreme Court to the court of common sense and common humanity, and we can appeal from man to God. If there is no justice on earth, there is yet justice in heaven. You may close your Supreme Court against the black man's cry for justice, but you cannot close the door of God in the court of heaven. And then Frederick Douglass says, because I believe this, I'm going to make history. As monstrous as this decision it appears, we got to meet it with a cheerful spirit. Because every now and then you need to know your enemy's attack is only to reveal your strength. That your enemy wouldn't be attacking you so much if you weren't so strong. And the very attempt to blot out forever the hopes of an enslaved people may just be one necessary link in the chain of events preparatory to the downfall and complete overthrow of the whole slave system. He says, this is what I know. The whole history of the anti-slavery movement is this, that every attempt to stop us only serves to intensify and embolden our agitation. There comes a time that when folk are trying to take what is rightfully yours, justice and righteousness, it has to not make you go somewhere and sit down. It has to make you stand up. And didn't our foreparents stand up? Don't forget how they stood up. And think about it. They had less, but they did more. They didn't have a cell phone. They didn't have Google. They didn't have TikTok. They didn't have Facebook. They didn't have iPhone. They didn't have cars. They didn't have a bank account. They didn't have a college degree. They didn't have fraternities and sororities and computers, but they did more with less. Touch your neighbor and say, don't let us do less with more. They did more with less. With less, they beat slavery. With less, they beat Jim Crow. With less, they beat lynching. With less, they beat the KKK. Harriet Tubman, with less, got 700 slaves out of slavery. She didn't have email, she didn't have text, she didn't have Facebook, she didn't have any of that. She didn't know what Twitter was, she didn't have a car. All she had was faith in God, a made-up mind. Now, she did carry a .38 pistol because she said, you're going to be free. One way or the other, you're going to be free. She had moss on the north side of the tree. She had a North Star in the middle of the night. She did more with less. We must do more with more. Langston Hughes, who wrote in the 1930s before Dr. King ever talked about I Have a Dream. In fact, this is where Dr. King got it from. He wrote a poem called Let America Be America Again. And Langston Hughes said, right in the middle of the Harlem Renaissance and the labor struggle, the steel of freedom does not stain from those who live like leeches on the people's lives. We must take back our land again. America, oh yes, I say it plain, America has never been America to me, but I swear this oath that America will be. Out of the rack and the ruin of our gangster death, the rape and the rot and graft and stealth and all the lies, we the people must redeem the land and the minds vines and the plants and the rivers and the mountains and the endless plain. We must take back our mighty dream. I say it and I say it again. America has never been America to me, but I swear this oath that America shall be. That's your alumni, Langston Hughes, who said that. And so tell everybody. In fact, touch your neighbor right now and say, neighbor, it's time to go to work. Call everybody you know and tell them it's time to make history. Knock on everybody's door and say it's time to make history. Snapchat everybody you can snap and tell them it's time to make history. I don't know if y'all still tweeting, but if you do, tweet everybody you know and tell them it's time to make history, because God is not going to do for us what we can do for ourselves. But if we will do what we're supposed to do, won't God show up? God will bless our efforts. Faith is not just what you believe about God, it's what you do because of what you believe about God. And if you do what you do, faith without works is dead. But faith with works is dynamic and powerful. Do I have a witness? When Moses stretched out his rod, then God showed up and opened the waters up, and the winds came down, and Pharaoh was brought down. When Esther went to see the king, then God showed up. When David threw the rock, then God showed up. When Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad Negro refused to back down, then God showed up. When Thurgood Marshall went to the Supreme Court, then God showed up. When Jesus went to Calvary, then God showed up. When Rosa Parks sat down, then God showed up. They showed up and Jim Crow came down. When Bishop Tutu and the mothers of South Africa, when they stood up, then God showed up. Do I have a witness here? Do I have a witness here? Won't God show up? If we try to make history, if we stand on the right side of history, won't God use the stone that the builders have rejected to make a new cornerstone in this world? And so I know y'all are college students, and I know you're way past grade school, but I want to ask you and the teachers here to all come with me for a minute and learn some new ABCs. In this moment when you need to make history, take the A and accept the challenge of every day. Take the B and be all you can be. Take the C and count your blessings. Take the D and do right. Take the E and ever strive for excellence. Take the F and fight on. Take the G and get going with God. Take the H and help somebody. Take the I and inspire somebody. Take the J and just say no to negative. Take the K and keep on keeping on. Take the L and learn to love somebody. Take the M and move mountains with the faith of a mustard seed. Take the N and never say never. Take the O and overcome your obstacles. Take the P and put your best foot forward. Take the Q and quit quitting. Take the R and run your race with courage. Take the S and stand for something or you'll fall for anything. Take the T and try, and if you fail, get up and try again. Take the U and use what you got to get what you need. Take the V and visualize your own potential. Take the W and work hard every day. Take the X and x-ray your own lifestyle and get your eyes off everybody else's business. And take the Y. Take the Y and yearn to be all you can be, and take the Z and know you got a place in the zodiac, in the stars, and no matter where you are in history, God knows your zip code, and He's able to take care of you. Come on, Lincoln. We got some victories. We
We got some fights to win. Stand up on your feet. Come on, Lincoln. Victory. Come on, Lincoln. The stones that the builders rejected. It's your season now. You gotta fight like never before. You can win. 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 Oh yeah.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Barber. You are indeed one of the cornerstones of our society, and we thank you for the spirit of trailblazing that you exhibit from our ancestors. In addition to being founded as Ashman Institute by Princeton priests who, Presbyterian ministers who wanted to send us back to Africa, this was a free town, Hinsonville. And so just like the place that you come, Free Union, Hinsonville was made up of free blacks. And so we honor you and we thank you for standing in this place and being one of the shoulders of giants that we stand upon as we cast our lot towards the future. Social activist, religious leader, scholar, author. Actually, this is the wrong one. This is the one that our friend already read. Well, we have a citation that we are going to give you, which was down here somewhere, which was meant to honor your time and all of the accolades that you have received. I will just talk about how in my own journey you have served as a model and a light. There it is. For as an academic, as someone in academia, we're not supposed to be activists. In a university that's a state school, that's not religious, you're not supposed to allow the unction, the soul, and the spirit that moves you into your work, whether it's academic or otherwise, to be displayed. But you have been one of the people who has been a model for me, and so thank you. Social activist, religious leader, scholar, author. Your leadership and interest in social justice was evident early in your life when you were elected as president of the local NAACP Youth Council at the age of 15 and student body president of your high school at the age of 17. The higher education degrees you earned at North Carolina Central University, Duke University, and Drew University each played a role in fortifying the foundation upon which your journey began. Lecturer, professor, pastor, board member, founding director, advocate, and prolific speaker are also significant roles that you have successfully fulfilled throughout your movement for social justice for people of all generations and social standing. Your Forward Together moral movement and moral movement protests continue to keep the struggle at the forefront of the nation. Your commitment and dedication to fight poverty in the U.S. was evident when in 2018, you co-anchored the revitalization of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. As president and senior lecturer at Repairers for the Breach, you continue to demonstrate your desire to bring awareness to the policies and misconceptions that influence the inequities of society. Mastering the stage, you have delivered your strong rallying cry in a multitude of arenas, including the platform at state and national conferences, behind the pulpit in our churches, before presidents and vice presidents, at the Vatican, and before the 5th UNI Global Union World Congress. Your biography is teeming with numerous accounts of the roles you have held in high-profile organizations, including president of the North Carolina NAACP, the National NAACP Board of Directors, and senior pastor of the Greenleaf Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Your story has garnered regular coverage in various media outlets. You are the recipient of 12 honorary degrees. This will be lucky number 13. And you have been named a 2019 North Carolina Awardee, a 2018 MacArthur Foundation Genius Awardee, a 2015 Franklin D. Roosevelt For Freedoms Awardee, and a Puffin Awardee. Your devotion to the moral movement is also evident in your work as an author of 4 books. William Barber II, it gives us great pleasure to honor you today for your advocacy on behalf of those marginalized in our society and for your efforts to uphold and further the fight for social justice. Now, by the authority vested in me, that's for you. You've got the authority. I work for the person with the authority.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins, but you have no authority. It's all right. So, William Barber II, it gives me great pleasure to honor you today for your advocacy on behalf of those marginalized in our society and for your effort to uphold and further the fight for social justice. Now, by the authority vested in me, by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the Lincoln University Board of Trustees, I am honored to confer upon you the Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. He's going to hit you, and then I'm going to give you a degree.
Oh, my.
You are wonderful.
I hear it, Lincoln.
You got it? Look at there. We're going to add you right on up there with Thurgood and the rest of them.
Oh, my. Thank you, thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much. And can we give Dr. Barber just another round? First of all, I want to thank Attorney Boston. She came to my office and she was like, my cousin wants to come and speak at Lincoln. Well, who's your cousin? And she's like, Reverend Dr. Barber. I'm like, bring your cousin on. So thank you, and thank you for working this through. I know some students had to leave, and I know the faculty, some of you had classes, so we're going to finish up really quickly. But I just want to say this has been a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. I'm so glad we can connect to Freedom 14, to everything that's a part of history. And so if we listened to Reverend Barber, we still have work to do. But you all stood up. You all said we're going to go make history. So let's go out and continue to make history. Thank you, and thank you for just a wonderful convocation. You have been an excellent speaker, and you are welcome at Lincoln anytime, because now you are definitely a part of the legacy. And so we will have a closing prayer from Reverend Morris, and we will get the faculty on out to their classes. Thank you all for being here.
Let us pray. Now unto him who was able to keep us from falling, the one that's able to present us faultless before his presence with exceeding joy. It's the only wise God, be glory, majesty, dominion, and power, both now and forever. Amen.
Please stand for the singing of the Alma Mater.
She's over there? Yes. And then we'll follow you. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day.
You want to go out this way?